Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Over the weekend, there was a mass shooting that took place in Texas where 5 people, including an 8-year-old girl, lost their lives. All news footage is used under fair use of United States copyright law of 1976 and is used in conjunction with my commentary.
Well, now to a developing story in Texas where there has been another mass shooting. CBS 2's Grace White reports.
Authorities in Texas say a man armed with an AR-style rifle shot and killed 5 neighbors, including an 8-year-old child. All of the victims are said to be from Honduras. The San Jacinto County Sheriff says a manhunt for the 38-year-old suspect, Francisco Oropeza, continued into Saturday.
Just stay in your house, be vigilant, keep your eyes open. If you see anything, say something.
The deadly violence started in the town of Cleveland, about 45 miles north of Houston, before midnight Friday. According to authorities, the family had asked the suspect to stop firing rounds just before the attack.
A gentleman stepped out of his house, said, "Hey, we're trying to keep an infant to bed," and he says it's his property. He'll do whatever he pleases on his property. The man went back in the house. Next thing they know, he's walking up the driveway with the rifle in hand.
When I heard the shooting, we were in bed, and my kids, I have 2 babies, they got scared. But we're like, well, that's normal, they're always shooting.
The sheriff said 10 people were inside the home and no one else was hurt. It's believed the suspect was intoxicated at the time and ran toward a heavily wooded forest a few miles away. Grace White for CBS News, Cleveland, Texas.
Now, in this incident, 38-year-old Francesco Oropeza allegedly was firing an AR-15 style rifle in his neighbor's yard, and when that neighbor went to confront him about shooting this gun while their baby was sleeping, allegedly Francesco Oropeza allegedly went into the neighbor's home and opened fire execution style on 5 of the family members, taking their lives. Now, Francesco Oropeza was not a U.S. citizen, and he went into the home of Honduran nationals to participate in this shooting, and after he participated in this shooting, he then fled the scene. Now, the police are seeing this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the alleged behavior Francesco Oropeza participated in, it fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that Francesco Oropeza was one of these beta males that had a serious problem with dealing with authority and authority figures, because when he was challenged by someone who was his neighbor, he decided to just go to an extreme in looking to take the lives of anyone who challenged him. Now, the main reason why he was so upset about being challenged is because Francesco Oropeza possibly was one of these beta males who was used to living in what I call a rose-colored reality. Now, in a rose-colored reality, the individual lives in a world that looks like ours and feels like ours, but that world, everything in it is completely distorted. And because everything in that world is completely distorted, these people don't have a good handle on reality, nor do they have any sort of ability to understand how to resolve conflict without going to extremes. And when Francesco Oropeza's rose-colored reality was disrupted, and the smoothness of his world was made rough with conflict by someone basically making a request for him not to fire a gun at 11:30 p.m. while their child was sleeping, The reaction that Francesco Orpeza allegedly participated in was to go into a rage, storm into the home of that neighbor, and look to murder most of the people he saw, execution style, with that AR-15 style rifle. And this is how beta males oftentimes solve conflicts, by acting on their impulses and going to extremes, not ever thinking about the long-term consequences of their actions. And because these men never think about the consequences of their actions, they act without thinking, and they act on their feelings of being slighted as related to an authority figure or another individual telling them what to do. And they go out here and participate in a spectrum of extreme violent behavior because someone just basically asked them to do something that they didn't want to do. And again, this is all due to the dysfunctional way that the beta male has been raised. And the way the beta male has been raised is to believe that everybody is supposed to cater to him, and he doesn't have to think about considering the feelings of others or consider how his actions have an impact on others. And because he has been coddled and sheltered, this is again the foundation of the rose-colored reality that he lives in, where he believes that the world revolves around him and only him. And because he believes that the world revolves around him and only him, he doesn't think that he has to consider the rights of others, and he doesn't think he has to be responsible about others. No, as if everything has to revolve around him, and if things aren't going the beta male's way and and disrupting the smoothness of his world, he believes he has a right to go out here and do harm to others because they had the audacity to disrupt his smooth world. Now, it's completely insane for an individual to be, as I see it, shooting an AR-15 style rifle at 11:30 p.m. on another person's property. Again, this is a complete violation of somebody else's boundaries, but with beta males, these individuals have no respect for another person's boundaries because the world revolves around them and only them. And because they believe that the world revolves around them and only them, they believe they have a right to disrespect others. They believe they have a right to mistreat others. And they believe if somebody has the audacity to challenge them, they believe it's okay for them to go to an extreme to harm those individuals, even though they don't see how they're doing harm to others. Because, again, a male shooting a gun at 11:30 p.m. at night on somebody else's yard, this is not the behavior of a responsible adult. No, this is the behavior of an extremely dysfunctional individual who clearly doesn't understand about boundaries and doesn't understand about respecting people's rights. However, this is par for the course for an individual who has illegally entered the United States multiple times and been deported multiple times, since he was never held to any standard by the federal laws. This individual felt he was all right to go into the state of Texas, violate the boundaries there as related to being an illegal immigrant, and then as an illegal immigrant he further wanted to violate more laws by firing this gun, because I believe it's not legal to fire a gun on property that isn't yours, because again, as a non-citizen, he had no rights to own property, and again, he was violating the rights of those individuals, and he felt like he had that right because he was allowed to violate boundaries thanks to the Biden administration's open border policy, which opened the door for this beta male to come back to Texas. And as he came back to Texas, he further looked to violate more boundaries. And as he looked to violate more boundaries, he possibly looked to violate people's rights and violate their right to live by participating in this mass shooting. Now, after this mass shooting, Francesco Orpeza has disappeared, and it seems like nobody can find Francesco Orpeza, and there's a possibility he might be in Mexico, or there might be a possibility that he is in the U.S. But the whole thing is, this man in crisis basically became a man who caused havoc in in Texas, all because of these leftist policies that created the open border that allowed this man to slip in and violate the boundaries of our country's sovereignty. And as he violated the country's boundaries of sovereignty, he then looked to again violate more boundaries by committing a possible crime by firing a gun in this yard at night, and then further escalated his behavior by murdering allegedly these 5 individuals, Honduran nationals. And after he did this, he then went on to commit to flee the scene. And most people are saying they don't know where they can find him. But this is what happens when you have a whole society created with enabling beta male behavior. Because when there's people enable beta male behavior and they don't know where the boundaries are, what these individuals do is continue to push boundaries, and eventually they start going out here and committing heinous crimes because they got away with a simple crime of breaking past your border. Again, this is what happens when you have policies that allow the beta male to not understand where the boundaries are. They continue to push boundaries, and as they push boundaries, they put people's lives in jeopardy. And that's what happened here in the case of these 5 people and this 8-year-old child who were a part of this family. Their boundaries were violated by an individual who violated our borders, and now that individual is running free to wreak havoc until eventually somebody winds up capturing him. And if they capture him, they may wind up convicting him and putting him in prison for the rest of his life, where he will be traded by Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, and Big Dave for commissary as they turn that tight end into a wide receiver, as they exchange his backside and his front side for Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, Kit Kat candy bars, those peppermints in the wrap, 6-pack off-brand cookies, 6-pack lemon cookies, marshmallow peeps, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies, packets of soy sauce, packets of hot sauce. This will be the fate of this individual for participating in this mass shooting. And this clearly is the definition of a mass shooting, because we have a beta male out here disrespecting people's boundaries. Then, when challenged by someone who wants to be an authority, what these individuals, when they see another person challenging them, this individual then explodes in a rage, goes to an extreme, and murders an entire family, and then goes out here, drops his cell phone and clothes to try to escape. Again, clear pattern and profile of a beta male mass shooter, and this whole incident is one of the most troubling because it shows a complete failure of America's border policies as under the Biden administration, and it shows that our border policies are letting in dysfunctional individuals who are not looking to achieve the American dream because they are dysfunctional beta males, and these men in crisis are creating crises here in the country and adding to the crisis of mass shooters, where we've had over 150 plus of these incidents in the last 4 months. And the reason why we're seeing this increase in frequency isn't about gun control. No, as related to this case, it's another clear example of what happens when people are not raised to have discipline and self-control. And the big problem we're having is that we have individuals out here who clearly do not have good discipline or self-control. And because these individuals do not have discipline and self-control, they get in their feelings when they get challenged by someone. They act on their feelings when they get in front of someone. and then they wind up doing harm to others because they feel slighted. And again, the word here is feelings, because these individuals, all they know how to do is feel and not think, and they don't think about the consequences of their actions. And what's really scary is that these individuals are just the tip of the iceberg, and that iceberg is just, we're just seeing it's getting more and more violence. I mean, it's like we've got landmines all across this country, and most Americans just don't want to acknowledge the man crisis in this country, and they don't want to acknowledge the man crisis because acknowledging the man crisis means we have to acknowledge the way we've been raising children in the West has been a failure, and that means we have to, one, look at the way these women who said that they could raise a boy to be a man have failed, and holding those women accountable. Two, we're going to have to look at many of the party policies of the Blue Party, such as this open border under the Biden administration. And that's a policy that we have to look at, because that policy allowed a man to come into our country who was a man in crisis, and that man in crisis wreaked havoc and caused a lot of 5 people to lose their lives, all because of a policy we have created with the Blue Party. Among other policies that the Blue Party has created, these policies have created this bumper crop of beta males who are violent all across the country, and this violence is just tearing up the country. But most American politicians and most business people don't want to acknowledge the man crisis, because it would lead to a major change in the way we do things in this country. And if we want for this country to survive at all, we're going to have to change the way we do things in this country, because if these beta males are allowed to continue going on with their increase in frequency and violence, they are going to destabilize the country, and they're going to make it a place that's unsafe for everyone. Because when you have 100 million beta males running around with no direction, no sense of purpose, and no structure or boundaries, they are not here going to create order in a country. They're going to create chaos, and that's what we see happening every day with these beta males running amok. These beta males are a clear and present danger to America, and America really has to acknowledge the man crisis and all of the problems leading up to it in this country. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to a beta male becoming dysfunctional, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today.